and Pittsburgh's very own, the House of Soul.
Hi, I'd like to take time to thank you for tuning in to the Timmy Willis Show. And you know what? The house is in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts because we're going to have an extraordinary show today. It brings me great pleasure to bring to you original member of the House of Soul, Mr. Kelvin Stemley. Hey, Kelvin, how you doing?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you as well, man. I've been good, man. I know you're a very busy individual, and I'm glad you took time to come down and share with us this special occasion. And what is the special occasion, ladies and gentlemen? This marks 2018, November, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
The 25th anniversary of the House of Soul.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Kelvin, you was there from the beginning. So take us there, all the way back to the beginning. How did this all come to be?
Well, Tim, it all came to be as I was making a departure from another group that was called Martin Solomon and the Hurricanes. And I had just left the group and was on the way to Frankie's, where they used to have a jam session, and Rodney McCoy was running the jam session. So when I got right in front of the place, I run into David Moore. And Dave and I, we had history because back in the 70s, we had a band together called Man. Mm-hmm. Used to play down the Crazy Quilt and places like that. Mm-hmm. So he was excited telling me about this new retro 70s band that was going to be coming into the Strip District. So I was excited for him, and we talked a little bit, and I asked him what was the makeup, and he told me it was going to be a retro band with real horns, and they have a horn section, they have vocalists and whatnot. So I told him, I says, well, when the band is together, be sure you give me a call and let me know. I would like to be one of the first persons to come down and check it out. So Bobby Yates was the designated saxophonist for the group. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, something had happened, and I got the phone call, was I interested in playing in the band? And I told him, yes, I was. So Dave told us that we had a month, I believe it was, to put together 27 songs to go in 3 sets, to go into Rosebud. Shortly thereafter, about a week, he told us that we didn't have the full month, we had 2 weeks. So we had rehearsals up across the street from where he was living at the time. And we would go up there every evening, and we would just practice for 4 or 5 hours. And we went into Rosebud the first or second week in November of that year. And there were very few people there. And each week, more and more people. So right around a month, it started to be very packed in there. The second month, it was a fire hazard.
Okay,
with so many people.
Okay, they was digging on what you was doing, huh?
Oh, every.
Well, just take us there. What kind of material were you doing?
Well, actually, we had cherry-picked some material. We were doing songs by Patricia Rashawn, Forget-Me-Nots. We were playing Earth, Wind and Fire tunes. We were playing Evelyn Champagne King tunes. So basically what we were trying to do, we were trying to approach the music of the 70s. And that niche, I don't have to tell you, even today, is very, very prevalent. People love that music. Mm-hmm. I grew up in that particular era.
Yes,
so
we did.
I embrace. Oh, yes, we did. Oh, you too. Oh, you see, you look so much younger than me.
Oh, come on now.
But yeah, we practiced it, and we played Kool and the Gang things, and we were at that particular time doing very challenging things. We would always open up with 2 instrumentals, and then that would kind of be the warm-up act for the vocalists.
Okay, so who was all in this founding unit
okay,
here?
well, before we get to who was in the founding unit, let me give proper credit.
Okay.
Dave Moore and Robin Fernandez had the concept of this band. They were the two that really had the concept. They had discussed it and whatnot before the personnel was put together. And initially, the band was not called House of Soul. Initially, the band was called Soul Stew and Sweet Potato Pie.
Yes, it
And in the original band, if I can try to remember, it's been so many versions, but in the original band, we had myself on tenor saxophone. We had Hillard Jordan on trombone. Franklin Westbrooks was on trumpet. That was our horn section. Daniel Vassar was lead vocalist. Nigel Moore was lead vocalist. And Robin Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. Forgive me, Robin, but it's been so many different versions of the vocalist since that time. So that was the vocal section. We had Gregory Humphreys on drums.
My man.
We had Doug Milner was the bassist out of Hazelwood, who was married to Gail Saunders, and he eventually left and went out to Los Angeles and is since deceased. We had Richard Williams on guitar.
Oh yeah, Red.
Okay, you know Red? Yeah, Red was in the band, and we had that was basically it. It was 10 pieces.
It was it. So who was actually doing the recruiting?
Well, actually, I guess after I had gotten into the band, certain leadership things were thrown my way, and so it was kind of thrown to me if there was going to be a personnel change and whatnot. And the one thing that did happen, in addition, Brian Clark was keyboard player.
Yeah, monster.
Can't leave him out.
Yeah.
Okay, but right around that time too, not too long after there, we added a percussionist, James Davis.
Okay.
And he was our percussionist. So that was our band.
Yeah. And
as I said before, at that particular time we were playing Can't Get Enough of That Funky Stuff. We were doing Kool and the Gang tunes. It was just a lot of fun. And the people that we attracted were so diverse. I mean, you'd have older generation of people, you have middle-aged people, you have the younger group that was coming there. It was white, there was black, there was Asian. So it was just a big gumbo buffet of a lot of fun, and the music was it was really wonderful.
Yeah, so you did your first performance at the Rosebud, and your audience just started growing. So where did you go from there, from the Rosebud? What was the next place that you went?
Actually, before we talk to where we went before the Rosebud, let's go back to the Rosebud, and we did 13 years every Saturday night.
13 years?
13 years every Saturday night.
That's a milestone.
Well, I think it was. And the beauty of that was that we had people that would come and that were looking to hire a band. So instead of them having to get a video or whatnot, they would come and see us live. And so out of that, we like to thank Mr. Robin Fernandez, because many weddings that paid very well was the result of that. And so we were there for 13 years until Rosebud actually kind of closed down. And then after that, people thought the group had broken up. But what had really happened was we'd gone underground into doing corporate work and private parties and weddings and whatnot. And we didn't really have a home base for quite a while. And the next place that kind of gave us some type of longevity in terms of gigs was in Bridgeville. What was that place called? Rhythm House. And so we were out there at the Rhythm House. We had some gigs out there. And since then, over the years, we've played many different things. We opened up for, speaking of the Queen, we opened up for Aretha Franklin out at Star Lake Amphitheater. It was another time we played when Janet Jackson was there. We've opened up for the Commodores. We've opened up for the Whispers. We opened up for the Dramatics downtown at the Hilton at the time. So it's been a wonderful opportunity, and we still rehearse every Wednesday at Hosanna House from 7 to 8:30 and try to keep our skills together. Because you know what happens as you start to get older.
Oh yeah, if you don't use it,
you lose it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, let's go back to, so the original lineup, was there all 13 years at the Rosebud?
No. Unfortunately, in bands and groups and whatnot, life situations change and different things happen. So people funnel out and other people funnel in. But the interesting thing about the group, as I kind of reflect on it, is that probably everybody that you can think of in Pittsburgh has been in the House of Soul at one time or another. Mm-hmm. We've had gigs that, I remember a couple gigs Kevin Howard played with us, Mark Gonzalez played with us. Original drummer too was Mark, after Greg Humphreys was Mark Leonard was our drummer, and he was with us for several years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just a wonderful, beautiful thing. But we've had Yolanda Barber was in the band, and now she's in Jacksonville married, and she's doing some things down there. We had Sherelle was in the band. She ended up leaving, and she went overseas, and she did cruise ships. We had Summer Rae Craighead, who's now Shawnee's. She's related to Shawnee's, and she has some solo projects out. So it seems like most of the people that funneled out of the band, they did very well for themselves. Matter of fact, they went on to greater heights. Kim Lomax was one of our phenomenal vocalists, was with us, and she has a band now with her husband called Platinum. You may know, may or may not know that group.
Her and Daryl.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. The great John Hall was the second bass player in House of Soul. Stacy Gray, guitarist, was in House of Soul. Then we have our current horn section with Mr. Darrell Cogdell on trumpet, and we have Mr. Carl King on trombone. Our current vocalists, we have Mr. Wayne Barber, Iris Joy Brown, and Bernice Wilkerson. Those are our vocalists. Jim Davis, I guess a holdout from the early days. He's still on percussion. We have the fabulous Mr. Calvin Murphy on the drums. We have Gary Howard, great guitarist. We have Keith Flowers on keyboards. So it's a great group still. You know, I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah, I can tell.
Still enjoying it.
I can tell. Well, look here, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, will you take us back in the days when you started, you know, like you said, you were opening up for these major groups. And what was that experience like for you?
I'd be happy to do so.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, stick and stay, don't go away. We'll be right back with Mr. Kelvin Stemley from the House of Soul. If you're just joining us, I strongly suggest that you take your shoes off and sit down, and you're in for a history lesson of the House of Soul, told by original member, Mr. Kelvin Stemley. Kelvin, before we went through the break, you were sharing with us some of the experiences of the band, and you was naming some like Aretha Franklin and some other major artists that you had the privilege of sharing the stage with. What was that experience like for you?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked the question. Before I go there, though, one other person I definitely have to include in our current group, otherwise I'll be assassinated,
yes,
will be our bassist, Mr. Ronnie Biggs.
Oh, yeah.
He's playing with us now.
Yeah. Ronnie Biggs, man. We and him go back to the Deltone days.
Well, he was in that original group I told you that I played with Dave Moore,
yeah,
and Cecil Valdez Washington called Man. So he's a phenomenal bassist,
oh, yeah,
too.
yeah, man. He's a rock.
Definitely, definitely. Very versatile.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to the situations with Aretha Franklin, that was just a wonderful situation. It was at Star Lake Amphitheater. And at that particular time, as I said before, having the ability to have a venue that you can play in every week did several things. Number one, it gave us the opportunity to develop our own unique sound because we were playing every week. We knew every Saturday we were going to play. Number two, it gave us an ability to be marketable so clients could actually come out and see us. And some of those opportunities for opening acts was the result of people actually seeing us. Some of your radio disc jockeys and some of your people that are in the entertainment business, they would see us, so we got asked to do that. And as I recall that event, one of the most significant things now that the Queen has gone on was the fact of how nice and warm she was.
Was she?
Oh my goodness, she invited us back into her dressing room and she talked with us and she just embraced us. So that was just a wonderful thing. We opened up, as I said before, for the Dramatics, the Whispers, the Commodores. We did all of that down at what was the Hilton, down there at the Point.
The Commodores.
The Commodores, that's right. You know the Commodores?
That's big stuff.
Oh, well.
Brick House.
Brick House.
Lady.
Well, the interesting thing about that, not to get off key here, but when I was at Grambling State University, the Commodores came at the time, and we opened up for the Commodores. Our group was called Solid State, and the thing that was interesting about that version of the Commodores is that you had Lionel Richie who was playing saxophone and keyboards, as well as singing. At that particular night, it seemed like the drummer was singing most of what the band was doing, and it's just funny how life works out. And Lionel went on to become a solo artist, and the rest is history. But yeah, wonderful group, and we're very fortunate to open up for them. We also opened up for the Dramatics, and when the Whispers came in, that was very interesting. We put together a specific show for that, and we were in McKeesport rehearsing, and we were putting together dance steps and choreography and whatnot. Yeah. So it was very exciting.
Yeah,
it was very exciting for us.
Now, let me ask you about your rehearsal regimen. I mean, what was it like? I mean, how many hours would you go, or did you just did it until you got tired, or what was that like, the rehearsal regimen?
Well, in an ideal world, that would be nice that you can go until you get tired. But realistically, what we've done over the years, we've just been consistent with rehearsals. Sometimes rehearsals would go 2-3 hours, but for the most part, we just were consistent every week for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Every week, an hour and a half to 2 hours. Part of the rehearsal program would have to do with reviewing. After you get past 150, 200 songs that you have in your repertoire, and if you're not playing them regularly, well, they can get a little rust on them. So part of what was done then as well as now is that we plan, we do, and we review. So if we go out and we play a particular event and whatnot, and things weren't necessarily like they should have been or could have been, then we'll go back and we'll review that. Basically, another thing, you didn't ask me, but we kind of focus on the music of the 70s and 80s, but we also include some of things from today. We do Jill Scott, we do Bruno Mars, we do that type of thing. But the basic niche that I think we feel is with the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, that's where your heart's at.
That's where my heart is, that's where my soul is, and that's where the money pays.
Exactly, exactly. Now look here, I know that there's been times when people, like you said earlier, had come and gone, you know, like a revolving door, you know, like a lot of groups, though, you know, things come up, situations, this thing we call life. So when we come back, would you kind of take us there with who was the first person to leave in the original lineup and why? Who was the next person to leave? And who replaced them? Could you kind of like give us a little insight on some of that?
If I can remember.
Okay, if he can remember.
Yes.
So stick and stay, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back as we celebrate the 25th anniversary of House of Soul with original member, Mr. Kelvin Stemley. We'll be right back.
Give it up, y'all. Wait, come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're still celebrating the 25th anniversary of the House of Soul with the original member, Mr. Kelvin Stemley. And before we went to the break, I had asked Kelvin if he could share with us some of the history of, you know, all groups have members that come and go with inside the group. and maybe he can share some of that history with us. So, Mr. Stemley, who was the first person to leave the group and why?
Okay, the first person to leave the group, as I recall, was Mr. Doug Milner. And the reason why Doug left the group was because Doug found an opportunity for himself in the Los Angeles area. So when Doug left, he was replaced with Mr. John Hall.
Okay, so he was the bass player.
John Hall was the bass player.
Okay.
Doug Milner was the original bass player.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And
now, well, let me ask you this: how did you guys know who knew John Hall to call on him?
Probably. Well, the thing about it is to try to go back. John was just probably recommended. I'm pretty sure that at the time, David Moore was kind of involved with the group, and so it may have been David who recommended. But it came by John came as a highly recommended person.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, because sometimes every time you change a member, the sound changes some.
This is so true.
Yeah.
And let me just say this. The departure of various people in the band, before they left, I always had a conversation with them. And the only thing about it is, I'll just put this disclaimer out there. Some of the reasons were personal reasons that they left that I don't really want to discuss publicly about whatever those reasons were. And that's okay. But before they left, and a lot of times, the other thing, let me say that a lot of times it was their wanting to leave, for whatever the reason was. It wasn't that they were fired or anything like that. They just moved on and wanted to do something else or other opportunities. But before they left, as the leader of the band, I always had a conversation with them, because usually when a person was going to leave, it was going to be a 2-week notice. So we have 2 weeks to kind of find another replacement or whatever. But before they left, and if you ever run into any of them, they'll tell you this to be true, I always would have a conversation with them. And I would ask them the question, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? You sure you want to make a departure? And I would say to them, because it took a long time to get the band to this particular point with this particular sound. So on your departure, it's not just a departure, it's a void that's created that has to be filled. So are you sure that you want to leave? Is sure you want to do? And then once they said, well, that was their decision, I said, well, the decision is final. Because once I go back and talk to the members of the band, we're not going to reverse this next week.
Right.
And then a lot of them, they departed. For the most part, I don't recall too many of them making a return, other than maybe for replacement for a gig or something like that. But once they kind of left, they went on. And like I said, I have to say, they went on to do better things. They went on to do greater things. They went on to enhance their careers. So it wasn't a negative thing at all. It was positive.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, this year, like you shared with me, marks the 25th anniversary of the House of Soul. Now, is there anything special planned for this momentous occasion?
Yes. This year we plan to celebrate in a kind of formal celebration. We'll be playing at the Meadows Casino, which is in Washington County. And at that particular event, we're planning a show, a 25th anniversary show, to celebrate that. So our hope is that we'll put together this phenomenal show. And we also hope that all of the people that followed us over the years, going back to the beginning days, will be able to come out and celebrate with us.
Yeah.
That particular night, we will have our CD. Oh, did we talk about our CD? We'll have our CD, and we'll have a very special price for you, and I guess of all of our original music. So we're really excited about that. But along the way, we were able to document the House of Soul Band, and the CD is called SLAMMIN. And it's comprised of 9 to 10 original songs. It was co-produced by myself and guitarist Gary Howard. And it features, as I said, original music. One of the songs on there I wrote for my deceased brother is called Z-Man. It's an instrumental, and it's the first song on the CD. So it's a very special CD to us. It documented the band, that if anything happens, there was a House of Soul band.
Yeah.
And here's a CD to prove it.
Right.
You know,
right.
so we're very proud and happy about that. And
Now, let me ask you, what is the date down at the Meadows?
it would be New Year's Eve.
Okay.
So it would be the
So
31st.
that would be December 31st.
That's correct.
2000.
18.
There you go.
Bringing in 2000.
19.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Now, as far as the CD, do you have any plans on maybe trying to get a major record deal? Has there been any discussion within the band about pursuing something like that?
There hasn't been any discussion about pursuing a major record deal, and quite frankly, I kind of think the tide has turned along those type of things for groups waiting to get a deal with somebody. I mean, not to say it's so far-fetched it doesn't happen, but when I look at the groups like rappers and hip-hop artists, they take more control of their own business. So they don't wait for a label to see. They do what they do themselves. So I think that in the music industry, it's kind of going more so that way, because we all know that with record deals and whatnot like that, for some groups, and we go back to Motown groups and whatnot, there was some exploitation of the artists.
Yeah.
Some of them end up my age or whatnot, and they have nothing to show for it. So moving forward, we're kind of looking to control our own destiny, if I could say. And so what we're hoping to do is to be able to perform more, be able to, I'd like to take the band and do a tour. That's one thing we haven't done. So anybody out there that's looking for a great R&B band, 11 pieces, we're looking for a tour. Now, you can call me and we can talk about all of the important issues that deal with that. But I would hope that before all is said and done, we get an opportunity to do that, to tour around and share this wonderful gift that we have with others.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Do you have a press kit?
We do have a press kit. Of course, we need to continue to update it.
Okay.
And we will be doing that.
Okay.
But we do have a presence right now. We have an internet presence. There are some clips of the band on YouTube. We also have a Facebook
now, where
page.
can they find these clips at? How would they pull these clips up on YouTube?
Well, if they pull up the clips and they typed in House of Soul Band,
Okay.
or they typed in Calvin Stemley-House of Soul Band, then there's a great body of work there, of things we did. As a matter of fact, Tim, right here in the studio some years ago on Pajama by Shirley Douglas, she had a show, Pajama Game or something. We actually recorded.
PJ Talk.
PJ Talk. We actually recorded here in the studio. And we do have that footage up in several segments. I think it's 8 segments of it. And you won't miss it because we'll have on our red and black attire. So, so that's a place that you can see on our actual Facebook page, which is House of Soul and a Pittsburgh Original. We also have some video footage of some things we've done.
Okay.
And hopefully, if I can talk to a certain Mr. Timmy Willis, we can maybe make a return visit to the studio and actually shoot some current video.
That would be,
but I don't know. That might be twisting his arm.
That would be wonderful. You know, we got some new equipment down there, so we can take it to
Oh,
another level.
All right.
You know what I mean?
HD and all that stuff. All right.
HD and everything. The only problem is the network's got to catch up with us because we're HD, but we still have an SD channel.
Yeah.
HD and SD, what is that? HD is high definition. SD is standard definition. So we're still on standard definition. So if you want to see us on a high definition HD channel, talk to your local cable providers, Verizon and Comcast, and demand that Pittsburgh Community Television get an HD channel, and we be ready. So look here, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, will you tell us some more about the fabulous House of Soul?
Be happy to do it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, stick and stay, don't go away. Take a slug from a jug, and we'll be right back with original House of Soul member, Mr. Kelvin Stemley, as we continue to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the House of Soul.
All right, y'all. Hope everybody enjoyed the show this evening. Coming to you live. Pittsburgh's #1 R&B band, the House of Soul. On trombone, the one and only Mr. Sean Bell. On sax, the one and only our very own doctor, Mr. Kelvin Stemley. On trombone, Mr. Carl King. On the funky bass, Mr. Gary Dalhones Davis. On percussion, Mr. Jim Davis. On guitar, Mr. Gary Howard. On drums, the one and only Mr. Kelvin Murphy. On keyboards, Mr. Keith Flowers. Lead female rock on vocals, the lovely lady, Miss Irish Joey Brown. And me, my name is Wayne Barber. And we are the House of Soul Band, y'all. Well, yeah. Well, I gotta tell y'all something. Check it out. What do you do when you love somebody and everything's going on wrong? Oh no, don't hesitate to give up on, 'cause on the inside the feeling is strong. Oh, here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. Well, yeah. You know what? Maybe you can explain this a little better than me.
You know what? I'm going to tell them what you do.
Check it out.
Here we go. What do you do when you love somebody? You decide you're going alone. Oh no, it never pays to give up on someone when on the inside the feeling's still strong. Oh, here we go again. Here we go. Oh, here we go again. Thought what we had was over, now here we go again. Ooh, here we go again.
After all we've been through, baby, I keep running back to you now. Out of all the sweet women of the world, I keep running back. Come on, come on, I keep running, I keep running, come on, keep running, keep running, keep running, come on, come on, here we go again. I thought what we had was over, here we go again. I thought what we had was over, now here we go again. I thought what we had was over, here we go again. I thought what we had was over, now here we go again.
The house is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. We're here with the original member, Mr. Kelvin Stemley of the House of Soul, as we continue to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the House of Soul. Now, Kelvin, you were telling me that there's 11 members in the House of Soul, because I know when I was starting out playing, we used to practice down in each other's basements. But where do you find a place to practice for a band that size?
Well, as you mentioned, to try to have a large group like that in a basement would be problematic. So what happened was we looked for different places to practice. The second problem is cost. So we were blessed to be able, through the trumpet player in the band, to have an ongoing relationship with Hosanna House, whereas that they provide us a place to practice that is big enough to contain 11 pieces, and in return, we give them a concert, a free concert at the end of the year.
Oh.
So the beautiful thing about that is we have a consistent place to rehearse every week. Lighting and heating and all that stuff's there. And we don't get on any of our members or members' spouses' nerves by trying to have a neighbors, by trying to have an 11-piece band. So that's how it's worked out for us. We've been practicing at the Hosanna House now for some years.
Yeah, that's a beautiful arrangement. Now, as far as songs, which songs to do, which songs to keep, which songs to take out, how does all that decided, and how does that process work in the House of Soul?
Well, the process of song selection and whatnot is crucial, because if you're establishing a niche, or you're trying to establish a niche, you have to have the right songs. If you're trying to, say for example, you say you list yourself as a dance band, well, you have to pick songs that are danceable. So what we found is that we've had several different approaches to it. Some work, some don't. There was a democratic approach. I'll pick three, you pick three, you pick three, you pick three, and we get through that. So you do the math, times 11. Sometimes that works. Sometimes that doesn't work. A more effective way of doing it is to look at the songs from the genre that you're trying to cover. See what were the #1 hits, the very popular ones. And they may not necessarily be the ones that are your personal favorites, but that's not important.
Right.
It's about business. So the business part of that says, pick songs and select songs that people are going to dance to. Now, I may play Brick House 6,000 times and have a Guinness Book record, and I may not want to play the song. I may hate the song. But if your audience loves the song, you play it 6,001 and 6,002 and 6,003. So that's kind of what we try to do, and what I come up with a term, tried and true. If the song is tried and true, My Girl, Let's Groove Tonight, songs like that, those are songs that are selected. And as a band, and I'm speaking for myself, when I'm on stage and I'm looking out at an audience, if the audience is not dancing and the song we're playing is hip, it's not really that hip.
Okay.
And the point about it is, if we continue to try to push or force feed certain songs on the people, they're not interested in that. And the way that they show that they're not interested is you don't get rehired.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to say that personal things that I book, certain festivals, certain things every year, we get called back to do them. And sometimes it's the same songs that they like. And sometimes that can be controversial, because as a human being, you know, all of us human, and we have 11 of us human beings in the band, there's not always agreement.
Right.
But one thing I have to say is that for a band like this to exist and to have a 25-year history, and let me say this in a proud way, as an Afro-American 25-year history band, there has to be criterions, there has to be standards, there has to be rules and regulations, and as I say, sometimes everybody doesn't agree to it, but for the best, for the whole, you know, for the best of the group, that's how it has to be, you know. The one thing I think that's been wonderful about our band is when we're performing, there's no stimulants used. We don't drink on stage. We don't do those type of things. For the most part, if you see House of Soul band, they're always properly attired. They're color-coded or formal or whatever, they're properly attired. We have a history of being on time. We have a history of, if we take a break and it's half an hour, when half of them are, we're playing.
Right.
And so the benefit of that is that in addition to some of our more well-paying gigs, there's always been a little extra tip or extra that type of thing that's passed on. So having that type of longevity and wanting to keep it moving forward, for however long this is gonna go, nothing lasts forever, but for however long it's gonna go, those things must be in there. And even as I said, sometimes it's unpopular, but you have to look at the situation as it's a business. And part of the reason House of Soul has lasted and whatnot is because all of us collectively as a family unit, we handle our business.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to handle our business.
Yeah. So when the Pittsburgh Steelers want somebody to fire up their fans, who do they call?
They call the House of Soul.
Yeah.
They call the House of, you don't call Ghostbusters, you call the House of Soul, because House of Soul is, since you brought that up, is the favorite vendor for the Steelers, is the favorite vendor for the Pirates, okay? And we don't take that for granted. We're very appreciative. We've played Steeler ring ceremonies. We played a pep rally. One year they were going to Jacksonville and it was below zero, man. We were out there playing in December, a pep rally. You know, fingers was freezing, but we got through it. So as the leader of House of Soul all these years, I'm very proud of the unit. I'm very proud of the wonderful musicians presently that are with the band. And let me say that again. Mr. Darryl Cogdell on trumpet.
Yeah.
Mr. Carl King on trombone.
My man.
Yours truly on saxophone. Iris Joy Brown on the vocals. Bernice Wilkerson on lead and background vocals. Mr. Dwayne Barber on lead and background vocals. Mr. Calvin Murphy on the drums. Mr. Ronnie Biggs on the bass. Mr. Keith Flowers on keyboards. Jim Davis on the drums. And Mr. Gary Howard on guitar. So they're a wonderful group. In our strange way, we love each other. And
family.
Yeah. But it's a great group. It's a really great group. And as I've said, I think we are a Pittsburgh foundation now. And we continue to, we promise you, our audience, that we'll continue to bring you the best in the soulful 70s, 80s music that you love so much, and that you've supported us for so many years and helped us to be who it is that we are. We thank you so much, and we love you so much. And we look forward to seeing you at upcoming events, if I may.
Now, where can they go to find out where you're going to be at?
Oh, you're ahead of me. If you'd like to find us, we have a Facebook page. It's called A House of Soul Band, musician, and it's a Pittsburgh original. If you look at it, you see the colorful album, CD that we did, SLAMMIN, and you see us in formal attire. Then you know you're at the right website. But on that site, I have all of the dates that we have presently up until New Year's. So if you want to know where to find us and you're on Facebook, by all means, go to House of Soul, a Pittsburgh original, and all of our dates are there.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you this, Kelvin. Is there anything that we have not talked about that you would like people to know?
Well, I'd just like people to know that after 25 years of working and trying to express ourselves and be as professional as we can, we look forward to continuing down the road of presenting you with the best in the 70s and 80s, and we would like to, moving forward with the vision, we'd like to cover some additional things that we haven't. There's some holes that need to be filled, and we just look forward to it. We just are extremely happy to do what we do. We feel blessed. We're very thankful to the Lord that He's given us 25 years. And as I said before, it's a monumental achievement, the things that we've done locally. Now, hopefully somewhere in there is a tour. Those people out there looking to have an 11-piece band, to take them on a tour, we're ready, willing, and waiting for you guys.
All right. Well, I tell you, me, myself, personally, man, I appreciate you guys, man, being here, man. I appreciate you holding it down all these years, you know what I'm saying? So keep it going.
All right.
All right.
Where can I get some shoes?
We'll talk about it. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank you for tuning in. And don't forget, when you go on that site and find out where the House of Soul is performing at, I guarantee you will be in for an extraordinary treat. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, remember, make somebody happy, make somebody strong.
Gotta get up, gotta get up, gotta get up. Get on up, y'all.
Yourself, you got a style like no